Hey everyone, my name is Charles Porter, and this will be my first video concerning high quality blend and Frasqueira Madeira wine. I have in front of me several different brands and styles of Madeira, which I'll cover shortly. But first we'll kick off with the question, what is Madeira? Well, Madeira is basically an ageless Madeira island, which is part of Portugal, wine that's been around for hundreds of years. Indeed, all of our forefathers in the United States, the first 15 presidents or so, were all extensively familiar and well versed in high quality Madeiras. And through the late 19th and early 20th century, many of America's gentry enjoyed them. They've fallen out of favor, and as a result, most people's exposure, if to any extent they've had it, it's probably the low quality cooking varieties that are available in supermarkets and liquor stores. But we won't be covering those. The manufacture process is pretty industrial for the Madeira cooking wines. They're created in stainless steel vats and heated artificially. These guys here are all drawn from very high quality stocks, in some cases involving Madeira wines that were aged for decades in the Conterno method, which is where the wine is produced, sometimes foot trodden. Early in the fermentation, it's arrested with a neutral spirit, which is then put into old French oak casks. And since Madeira is a tropical island, these wines are oxidated and heat treated. Normally, you don't want wine cooking in the sun, but because it's been fortified with that neutral spirit, these basically become indestructible wines, and they were incredibly useful in trade and with the American colonies. So many wines that would spoil from the old world, by the time they came to Boston, New York City, this wasn't the case with Madeira, and because it was delicious, it became all the rage. So my hope is that we can introduce to some of you that may be interested this pretty rarefied outre world. I'll start by saying that No Concert's Madeira, the island vineyard, they've recently put out a new printing. Original copies ran in the hundreds of dollars, and now I think it's like $40 or $50 you can get on Amazon. It's a great introduction to the history and styles of wine. I enjoyed it immensely, and I use it as a reference. And if you want to just start exploring some of the brands of Madeira that make the traditional methods, some of my favorites are right here. D'Oliveros and Barbado being my two favorite Frasqueira Madeira producers. Frasqueira, of course, only ports can call themselves vintage in Portugal, so Frasqueira means that these have been aged at least 20 years, if not much longer. And of course, I've also included an introduction of sorts. Rare Wine Company, with the help of Barbado, has put out some introductory blends that are still very high quality and worth looking into, which we can talk about a little bit later. But the point of this video is I want to say that unlike port, unlike sherry, Madeira is an indestructible ageless wine. It's incredibly flavorful, and for those that are looking for something a little different, we can sort of hit some of the wave tops. Now, there are 4 noble grape varieties, and they have different taste profiles. If you like something that's bone dry and can be used as an aperitif, or even in an extremely fancy cocktail, I recommend Cercial, which is the lowest sugar level fortified wine I've ever had in my life. It's got a very aromatic and beautiful aroma that then is hit with a bracing acidity. I recommend serving it chilled. A little more nutty and sweet, but equally standalone in terms of not necessarily being a dessert wine, is Verdeo. I have, here we go, here's Cercial, which you can get at the Rare Wine or other fine vendors for about $50. Verdeo as well. These are not vintage quality, they're blends, but they're pretty close, and they've been highly rated by Robert Parker, a wine advocate, and other reputable critics. Your basic varietals being Cercial, as I just mentioned, Verdeo, which is slightly sweeter. You have Bowl, which is a white grape that makes a very sweet, beautifully aromatic, chocolatey mocha dessert style wine. And then you have Malvasia. I believe excuse me, here's a Malvasia right here, made by Barbato. And this is a blend, but it's the lowest level is 20 years, and to meet that standard, there's stocks of 40, 50, 60, 70 years, I believe, in this one. After that, you have Malvasia. After Malvasia, you have some of the rarer varieties like Bastardo and Tarentaise. I've been lucky enough that I was able to find a bottle of Blandy's 1980. That's my birth year, and maybe I can, when my son, who's not even 2, gets married or has a wonderful life experience, we can break that baby open. Like I said, these wines are indestructible. So once you open them, you don't have to worry about oxidation. They can be open for years. You can also keep them in your cellar, which you have to stand upright like I have over there, because the acidity will literally burn through your cork. They're good forever. So you can buy it, you can open them, you don't have to drink the whole bottle in a day. Indeed, you should decant, and in many cases let them air out for days, because they can get bottle stink. There's a lot of things I've discovered about getting into Madeira I never thought I would have to do. I've been lucky enough that I've done some horizontal tastings with some century-old Madeiras, and the man hosting the event had to actually decant some of these wines 10 days prior to make sure that they really opened up. And some of the reference wines, for example, for Tarentaise, go all the way back to 1795. So you can open up a bottle of 1795 Tarentaise and drink it, and it's still alive. So when I say these wines are truly indestructible, I mean that. Now, obviously, a lot of folks haven't had exposure to these wines. I had to learn the hard way. Every varietal probably has a slightly different temperature, optimum temperature. I do recommend, if you buy a bottle of Cercial, for example, that you chill it. I tend to serve Verdeo, Bowl, and Malvasia at slightly under room temperature, and then let your hand and the glass kind of warm it up as the night goes on. Some folks prefer to serve it at room temperature, but I think in the 60s that's good. And then depending on the type of Tinta Negra, which is a style I haven't talked about. Tinta Negra is actually chameleon. It's the most grown grape varietal on the island, and it's actually incorporated in some very good blends, as well as Frasquier styles by itself. Depending on the elevation and depending on how the vintner creates their wine, Tinta Negra can be made to taste bone dry like Cercial, nutty like Verdeo, or a chocolate dessert style like Boule or Malvasia. And then, of course, if you're lucky enough to try some of the almost extinct varietals like Tarentaise or Bastardo, you're a lucky man or woman indeed. This will conclude my very quick introduction. Subsequent videos will be opening some of these guys and doing some tastings. I look forward to seeing you there.